So thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate it for our October webinar for the Memory Lab. Oh yeah, which one am I? Okay, yeah, sorry. So I have here today Natalie Milbrodt, and we're sitting in Queens, New York. So she's going to talk about what she does here at the Queens Library, their central branch, working on their Queens Memory project. And it's just going to be kind of like a discussion and looking at a different model of thinking about a memory lab that you guys can get inspiration for and see how it's done elsewhere and the wonderful things that they're doing and cool stuff. So Natalie, if you want to just kind of introduce yourself and how long you've worked here and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we started the Queens Memory Program in 2010. I started it actually as a student getting my library degree, and then it became a program that was supported by the library, but it's a cooperative program between Queens College, which is part of the City University of New York, which is the public university here in New York City, and then the public library system in Queens. So in New York City, there are actually 3 different public library systems. Brooklyn has its own system, Queens has its own system, and then the other 3 boroughs share the New York Public Library. And so we have like 63 branches, so basically like every little neighborhood has its own library. And it's a great kind of like infrastructure, I guess, for a community archiving project, because there are community, like public service, community library staff who really know their communities, and they really know like the populations that are there, people who really are knowledgeable about local history, and so they can really like invite them out to different events that we do. So sometimes it's scanning days. I think that like this little Prezi that you're looking at has different kinds of events that we do that are public events, which can give you kind of a sense of like the types of public programs we do. But basically we're an oral history collecting program, and then we also have the second part of our mission is to kind of push the local history collections that are in our collection, like here in the central library, out to the public. Because a lot of times people just don't even know that their public library has local history collections. Yeah. So we try to just raise awareness and then get people to understand that their history, even if they've only been in the United States for a very short time, is really important, and that in 100 years, people are going to come to our institution looking for their stories and looking for their, especially migration stories. Most people, like, I think 55% of Queens residents are foreign-born, and so we're this, you know, incredible, like, point of entry for the whole country. So,
yeah, I was going to say, if any of you haven't been to Queens, it's very, like, I was very excited about what we were going to eat for lunch today, because it was going to be something we can't necessarily get in Baltimore. And there's just so many different cultures, and it's a really, really lovely part of New York, and it's very relaxing as well. Much more relaxing, I felt, than Manhattan.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's kind of like getting to know the library and the neighborhoods and Queens itself. And then I really thought, so if you want to talk, actually, we could maybe start, since we've both just come off of Home Movie Day from this weekend. You can talk about what you guys did for Home Movie Day.
Okay. So this is our first Home Movie Day that we've ever participated in, and we did it in collaboration with a bunch of partners, and we held it at the Museum of the Moving Image, which happens to be in Queens. Which is awesome.
It's my favorite museum ever, obviously. Super nerd.
Yeah, it's a great museum. So we made it into kind of a 2-day thing, where in the first day, the people from the NYU program called MEAP, which is Moving Image
Archiving and Preservation.
There we go.
Yeah.
So the student chapter came out, and they had equipment that they set up that I think is just owned by NYU maybe. And so they were doing transfers for people who just showed up, and I was really surprised because it was our first Home Movie Day, and they said they got over 20 people coming in with stuff, which I thought if we could even get 5 people to come in with stuff, I would have been really excited. So they did some transfers, and then the second day, which was Sunday, that was when I could be there, and we screened some of the brought in.
Mm-hmm.
So we were able to show those, and people were like introducing their family home movie footage like in front of an audience at this really prestigious Museum of the Moving Image, where usually like that spot in the front of the room before a screening is reserved for a director,
right,
or a movie star or something, and instead it's somebody being like, oh, this is Christmas in 1963, you know.
Yeah.
So it was really neat.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of tabling, like giving out information. We have a brochure that is specifically about personal archiving, and we were handing those out.
That one.
Yep.
Yes. I'll do a little show and tell.
Yeah.
Because I think it's pretty cool.
And so this was written by Maggie Schreiner, who was with us during a time that we had some grant funding on a project called Culture in Transit. And so she has a lot of experience teaching personal digital archiving people.
This is cool.
Yeah, nice, like simple icons, some kind of straightforward tips. And what we found is that if we're having a scanning day, you got to get people to like the next thing, like we don't want to overwhelm them, so it's kind of like asking questions about like where do you keep stuff, and then maybe giving just one suggestion that gets them like just a little closer to having things safe. And
and answering. Yeah, I feel like from the few times that I've done some pop-up stuff, I feel like people tend to have questions that like being able to answer them with, you know, I think that we want you guys to feel eventually like you'll be able to answer them with, obviously without giving them like too much of a, this is what you should do, but here are your options, right? Like, because it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, and even giving somebody something kind of catchy that they can look up later. Like sometimes I'll throw around like, well, remember the 3-2-1 rule, and then knowing that like later they can Google 3-2-1 rule and then get some good advice on like where to keep copies and how many formats they should be in.
Yes. And is this online?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So if you go to queensmemory.org, and you go into technical, it's like one of, it's about, and then technical, and then it'll be there as one of the PDFs that you can download.
Cool. Awesome. Very cool. And then speaking of documentation, so I shared it via, but I need to put it in Slack today. So Slack, we finally, DPPL finally had our maximum preservation volume 3 for home movies. We've put this out on Friday just in time for Home Movie Day. So I'll put a link in Slack to that so you guys can print out and have this there at your memory lab in order to hopefully, you know, if someone's asking about film, you can be like, well, you can't digitize film here, but here's, you know, some further resources that you can take home and start thinking about those things. And then maybe next year everyone can have a Home Movie Day. Because it's really fun, right, Natalie?
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. So if you want to talk a little bit more about, I'm not sure what, I forget, but some of the events that you guys have done other than Home Movie Day.
Yeah, so maybe we can just kind of arrow through this thing. It'll just be kind of a picture show.
I love that you did Prezi.
Yeah, I did this for an internal presentation to people who are other department heads at the library, because we have a large enough institution that we don't understand each other's work, and we don't there's no natural way that we're like just seeing what our colleagues are doing. And so these meetings are like, I learned about our Job and Business Academy and our New Americans program, and like people who are doing really great stuff that I don't touch. And so I try to give them a sense of like how we are interacting with the public. So yeah, this first thing, you can just keep on arrowing.
Oh, yes, yes.
This was actually from our very first scanning day. It was in an area that was heavily impacted by Hurricane Sandy damage. And Maggie, so these are some of the ones that happened later, but they started out as a response to hurricane damage. And we found that a lot of people had materials that they had partially lost. And so whatever it was that they still had, they brought in, and sometimes they were like weird, wrinkly, like water damage things, and we were scanning them, and then sometimes they were keeping them, and we were trying to help them out with some mold remediation, and sometimes it was like, this thing is going to have to go, but at least we can make a scan for you.
Yeah.
And then what we found was that it wasn't just people who had water damage things, like there were people who really wanted to like come in and bring their family photos from all over the neighborhood, all over the borough. So that's one kind of event that we do.
Cool.
We also just hold a lot of workshops. Most of them are like this. They're like oral history workshops. That one was at Queens College. And so there are a lot of students and faculty who are doing different independent studies and community projects and stuff that involve them needing to know how to do oral history interviewing. But then we also work with groups like this. Like this is a group in Breezy Point, which is also in the Rockaways. They were given this really nice gift of a very nice computer and scanning setup.
Oh, cool.
But they kind of like didn't necessarily know how to use it, and so they called us in to just kind of like help them make a plan for file naming and for just like where to store stuff. And so we worked with them. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and like what settings their stuff should be on. This is this guy, the bald guy. His name is Uno. He's an artist, and he does these really cool programs with us. So this one, he was doing drawing. So the woman sitting on the opposite side of that little cardboard partition was telling him about her life. And she was drawing, and he was drawing, and they couldn't see what each other were drawing. And then if you arrow forward again, there was also this group of people who were participants, and they were listening while drawing. And so they had a giant sheet of paper that they were all drawing as they listened to her story. And then at the end, she walked around and she could see what they had drawn, and she saw her stories reflected. So she just felt really deeply listened to. And I think that people were able to retain what they were hearing from her because they were engaged in a creative act. So like, there's something kind of magic that happens when you're like using your hands and creating a drawing while you're listening. So we love working with this guy, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, he's just a great way with people. So everybody gets comfortable and they start drawing. That's so cool. Yeah. And then we do a lot of story sharing circles. We started doing those with the New York Council for the Humanities. They have good facilitators who will like do one and show you kind of how it's done, and then we kind of learned from them and we're able to take. And we just the woman who organized this one in Laurelton, which is a Southeast Queens neighborhood, just organized one with us on Saturday that was in the St. Albans neighborhood, which is a place where like Fats Waller and Ella Fitzgerald and I think maybe Dizzy Gillespie, but definitely like James Brown lived there, and Lena Horne, like a whole bunch of really famous jazz musicians, and then a bunch of hip-hop artists who came after them all live in this neighborhood. So we invited musicians to come and tell their neighborhood stories. And then since we invited musicians, they brought their instruments. So they were like, you know, like 80-year-old jazz trumpeter, like just playing for us while we heard his story about growing up in the neighborhood. So we found that like if we invite 5 people and kind of have them as like ringers, you know, who are there and they bring pictures, and like one guy brought flyers from his gigs from the 60s, and so we scanned those. But after you hear from those people and then you open the floor, people from the audience will always stand up and have great stuff to share too. They just kind of like, it's a great way to like initiate that kind of event, to have people who are planning to talk.
Definitely. And do you record these events?
Yeah, and starting on November 17th, we're working with York College, which York College is another part of the City University of New York. They have a virtual reality lab, and so that we're going to record in 360. So we're going to be able to capture some of the information exchange that happens between people like across a story sharing circle. So you'll get people who will be like maybe from the same generation and same neighborhood, and even if they don't know each other, as one is remembering like, oh, what was that soda shop? And then the other one will be like, it was whatever. And they'll be like, oh yeah. Your audio recording or even regular video recording, like you can't keep up fast enough to catch those knowledge exchange. So we're hoping that with the 360 camera that we'll be able to capture that learning and exchange that's happening. And then that will be our archival record, is that video. And then we can either set it up on monitors that are in a circle, so you can like walk in and like be in the center of the circle, or you can use the VR glasses and like turn and look at what's going on.
Awesome. When does that happen?
November 17th.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
At Cambria Heights.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and so this one was one that was held at a church. It was a neighborhood group that like called us in and they wanted us to help them. So I think if you arrow to the next one, it shows you like, so they had stuff that they brought, and then we digitized things from our local history collections that were about their neighborhood and created these enlarged reproductions so that they would be able to see those too. Yeah, so it was a collaborative thing. And sometimes we do stuff like this where we have a map of the neighborhood, and then we have people put a dot in their first name wherever they lived. And then they have the different post-its which mean different things. So like you maybe do one color means like a memory of the neighborhood, and one is like your hope for the future, and maybe one is like something that you missed that's no longer there, or you can have it be whatever you want it to be. But the nice thing about doing that kind of thing is that at the end of the day, you have this thing that's like it attracts more and more people because everybody wants to read each other's, and it just turns into this kind of beautiful display. So,
oh, that's so cool. Memory mapping. Neat. And then do you like document those and share them sometimes? Or
Yeah. So we did. I don't know if I have a picture of it, but we just had the 25th anniversary of the Queen's Pride Parade. So we were doing a bunch of celebrations around that, and we had people share their Pride stories. And we found that it was a way for people to kind of remain anonymous, but share something very personal on the day of the Pride Parade. So people wrote out notes, and then they hung them on these kind of clothesline kind of things that we were doing, which I'm sure if you arrow forward, there are like clothesline pictures to show how that looks. Yeah, it looked like it was like this.
Cool.
And so then that built over the day, and we made sure to scan all of those, and we have.
Wow. Oh, oops, live interviews.
Yeah, so this one doesn't happen as much, but sometimes when we have like a notable local author or artist or something, then we'll just do a sit down like with an audience watching us interview. And so, yeah, sometimes those happen, and then people ask good questions and stuff after.
Open up to the audience kind of thing. Cool.
Yeah. That kind of the ones where it's just community members talking and me not being like, hello, here I am.
Right, in a spotlight, yeah.
And then we do a lot of work with students. So this was a project where there was a sociology class, and they were learning about the impact of migration on culinary traditions and families. And so the students were interviewing their family members. So the student in this picture is the one on the right, and then it was with her mom, and they were talking about their cooking traditions in their family and the recipes that their grandma never shared with them, and they're like, and then some things we know and we can't tell you, and we're like, okay, that's fine. And we made it into an exhibit.
Cool.
It was in a public case. And these were a bunch of 14 and 15-year-olds who did this incredibly thoughtful interview project. It was we made all of our digitization and interviewing guides kind of simplified to be able to work with them, and then we found that those were actually better than the guides that we were expecting adults to use. It's always better to be simpler. But they interviewed people, and they were kind of learning about gentrification. So they did all these interviews with shop owners that were along Myrtle Avenue, which is in Ridgewood. It's the shopping district. And it was gentrifying very rapidly. So even during the couple months they were doing this project, there were some shop owners who were like priced out of their shops that they had been in for many years. So they were catching it at a kind of, like in some ways really tense time, because people were like stressed and like in the middle of this pinch of the neighborhood change, but also at a great time where they were able to capture interviews with people who, were not going to be there.
And was this for a class, for their class?
They had some kind of like city-funded service learning job thing where they were paid a decent rate of pay to work for a certain number of hours every
week. Through the city.
Yeah, and then they were at the Greater Ridgewood Youth Council, and Greater Ridgewood Youth Council had money to hire teacher/supervisor people who were like helping them manage this project, and they did great stuff. They ended up doing also like theatrical like interpretations of the interviews.
And did they reach out to you for that?
Yeah.
Or okay, cool. Yeah, so partnerships. So outreach too, to let people know that you're doing things so that then they can be like, ooh, we've got money for this thing. We should partner with the Memory Lab.
Yeah. And I think that those happen more and more the longer you're around.
Yes.
And so there's a certain amount of just being patient, and then people will find you, and
partnerships will flow.
Then we also did an inter-library initiative that was called Broken Hearts Week, which was kind of an all Valentine's Day series that was going on all Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And so we had all of these kind of like downer programs.
Yeah.
We had like, you know, author talks that were like, how to get over heartbreak and like super depressive like romantic poetry and exactly. Yeah, so I had Valentine's Day with a bunch of high school freshmen who interviewed elders in the community, and so they were all partnered up like this, and you can see the love between them. Like we would take their picture after they did their interviews, and the elders were sharing their broken heart stories, and they like laid it on, like they did not they did not hold back.
Yeah.
And so I think that the teens, they're young teens who participate in our teen programs for the most part, and I think that they were kind of just blown away that an adult was sharing something serious with them, and so they took it on, and they took the responsibility for it, and they totally bonded. And our hope was that they would hear stories about heartbreak and then see like clearly this person has survived, and like they went on and got married and had kids and had a really happy life. The world's not going to fall apart when you have your first breakup kind of thing. So I think it was very good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good for everybody.
And are those recorded too? You do? Everything. I'm just like, recording? Wow.
Yeah, so those are just audio recordings of the interviews between the teams and the elders. And so we have them in the archives.
Gotcha. Yeah, so what makes it like, when are you like, we're going to do video versus audio?
Well, usually we just do audio only because I don't really have great infrastructure
until you
for
get
video.
But
so the video is a new thing.
Yeah, okay.
And we're going to have to try to figure out like storage for it and everything.
Yeah. Gotcha.
New territory. I might be calling you.
Well, there you go.
And then this was an indie author day. So again, this was at the same library, and they liked this pairing up idea. So they paired up the authors who were presenting their indie author books. So they interviewed each other about their experience of getting self-published, and so they were sharing information and getting to know each other, but then also creating a record of like, here's how to do this. And it was nice community building, I think, for people who are living in this region and all trying to do writing and self-publishing, which, you know, like from everything I've learned, a tough endeavor.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then this is the project that we just finished over the summer. We had a 12-week session with a teaching artist who is Naomi Kuo, who's standing in this picture. This is a quilt that we made. And we had 4 different teaching artists from the community, and they taught different techniques that were from their family's making tradition, and then people were sewing their memory of migration, like their family's migration story, into a quilt block, and we were recording them as they would tell us their stories, and then we embedded the audio into the quilt using an Arduino Lily pad and conductive thread, and so there are buttons on the front, and if you push the button, you hear them tell their story, and they'll be like, the reason I made, you know, these shapes is because of this, and my family flew here, or, you know, whatever their story was. So, yeah, we built it as a real quilt, and, it has the electronics part, too.
And so that was just like Queen's Library, any other organizations involved there?
That one, well, so Naomi is in the Masters of Fine Arts program at Queen's College, and I had some grant money through the Memories of Migration grant, which is an IMLS grant, so we were able to pay her and the other teaching artists, but she was really the one who organized it, and we had it at the Flushing Library. So the good thing about having it there is that it's a super busy library that has a super diverse population. So we had, in this memory quilt, we had people telling stories of immigrating from, like, you know, 5 or 6 different countries and at different times in history. So there are some things that bound their stories together and some things that create a lot of variety.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Last thing. Oh, and then this is just a regular event that we have. We always have, so every month we have a regular event. So we'll alternate, and 1 month we'll have an oral history. Next month, we'll have a Volunteers in the Vaults event. So this is when we invite people who are volunteering with us as oral history interviewers or taking pictures of their neighborhood or whatever they're doing for Queen's Memory. We invite them to come and look at some cool artifact from our collections. And we'll show them maybe how to use the map collection or how to use score collection or something. And then the second part of the event, they'll have snacks and they'll share information with each other. So if somebody's about to go out and do their first interview, for example, then they can get a little cheerleading from the other volunteers.
Tips, yeah.
Some tips,
yeah,
and some encouragement.
Makes it less nervous, or yeah. So how many volunteers do you have regularly?
Well, usually at these events, it will be like maybe like 10 to 15 people, but there are dozens of people who are out there kind of working at different levels of regularity with us. So like there are some people who just like keep doing interview after interview, and we can like assign them people, and then they're finding people, and they're really active. And some people just will volunteer once, and they'll interview grandma, put that in the collections, and then they're all set. So people have very different, and then, you know, like I think a lot of students will kind of have seasons where they have more opportunity to volunteer, and then they'll get busy, and then they'll come back. So we try to keep it open. And also work with people depending on what it is they want to learn. Like the woman in the left of this picture is Adrienne Lara. She is she's cutting our first season of podcasts. And so like I don't have staff to cut a podcast, but if she wants to take it on, I'm like, girl, take as long as you need, because we don't have any way to do this other than you. So she's
like, you're doing so much that I'm like, you must have tons of volunteers or something.
It's the volunteers. They make it possible.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so sometimes our volunteers in the vaults are like this, where it's like a circle of people, and then like in this one we were showing off some WPA art in our collection. I was showing you a little bit of it's hanging on the walls. And we had recently digitized a bunch of it, and so people were curious to come in and see those pieces before we put a lot of them that weren't framed back into the vaults. We were kind of like, last chance before we put it back and lock it up. It's like, look at them. And then sometimes if you arrow on, I think there are a couple other scenarios. There we go. And then we also have partners. So like this is the Maple Grove Cemetery, and they had us in, and so all of our volunteers got a peek at their cool collections that have to do with like internment logs and historic pictures of things. And in this moment, like the historian there was showing one of our volunteers family plot that he didn't even know he had.
Wow.
It was kind of a very special moment, not something you can expect to happen. So wow.
That's a lot.
We don't do it all every day.
And then, but then I was going to say, I think you were talking earlier that you only have one other full-time staff, but that you haven't had that full-time staff member for a few months.
Since like June 3rd.
So, but typically there's two full-time.
There's typically one, and then I'm the director of metadata services, which means that I'm supervising Queen's Memory, but also all the cataloging for the system and the digitization division. So, so my attention is a bit divided.
Yes, definitely.
So one full-time person.
Right.
Wow. And then a part-time person who's an outreach coordinator at Queens College. So she gets, I forget now, what is it, 15 hours a week maybe?
Okay. And then do you do a lot of outreach for, like, to get volunteers, or do they just kind of come to you?
But both. So we have a regular internship program where we wanted to pay our interns. So one of them is a service learning that's from CUNY, and so we get those. We get 2 undergraduate students every year, and they, I forget, have a total of, I'm not going to remember this correctly, but basically we give them for 2 semesters for 12 hours a week. And then we have a partnership with Citibank, and so the graduate library students will come and they'll do a semester with us, and then a semester in the corporate archives at Citibank, and then Citi puts up the money for a stipend for them.
Wow.
And so it's a way that we can do it where we're paying people. So those are our regular volunteers. They're like our interns. And then everybody else just kind of finds our postings on the library website. So we have a good volunteer services department that helps us put up a posting if we need. So we have one that's always up for interviewers, and then if we have a special project we're doing, we'll like put out a call for volunteers to do something.
Gotcha. And then as far as equipment that you have. I think that would be cool to kind of compare and contrast what you guys have, because I know you were saying it's mostly audio that you're recording for the oral histories. And then, so I'm assuming just like nice microphones or?
Even. We have like, we have Zoom recorders, which are like, we usually buy the bundled package so that it'll have like, you know, come with the stuff to put together a little kit. And those are usually about $200 each. And increasingly, volunteers have just been using their smartphones. And so we try to fill them in on an app that they can use so that when they record, they can boost the settings up and be recording like a WAV file instead of an MP3.
Gotcha.
And then we usually have them have like a backup so that in case they have a failure with one recorder, that they have a backup. And then we try to just have them correct for like room noise. And just try to really tell them about like creating an environment that is as quiet as possible, and really emphasize that more than trying to get them equipment. So sometimes we loan them equipment, but a lot of times the reality is that we're working with, say, students who can't be bothered to like come in and even borrow it every quarter.
How to use it.
And it's not even like hard. It's the hard part is them like schlepping to our location and picking up the recorder. So they want to use their phones, and increasingly, like, you know, smartphones are actually pretty okay for audio. And then we, and then other equipment we have is our mobile scanning kit, and that is all broken down on the Culture in Transit website, which is maybe something that you can share if you haven't already.
Yes, we have. Okay, but we'll share again because it's worth looking at again.
And so that really has a good breakdown of like what equipment has worked well for us, what things we found were not good to use. So for example, when you're picking up and moving from one location to another, the overhead camera rig was not great for us because you can't control the light well enough unless you're really in a space that you can control more consistently. So we found that our flatbed scanners are a better way to go. And if somebody has like a letter jacket or something that they really want us to photograph,
an object,
some kind of a 3D object, then we'll just ask to borrow it or have them bring it in to our lab here, our lab, which is a room with like an overhead scanner that is more fixed up.
But I feel like it's going to be very much like what our partners have too. So that's a very good distinction. And then our memory labs are going to have a flatbed scanner, but it's the more expensive of the Epson ones. So it's sort of, I am reticent to have them travel too much with it. Because at DCPL we have, I think it's a 4400 photo, whatever. It can still do transparencies and things like that.
But
it's not oversized.
Like line.
But that's also sort of where, you know, you don't feel as bad if it gets dinged up a little. But there are, you know, potential ways to make it more portable.
Those Pelican cases with the phone, those are really good.
Those are thinking for
money.
See, that's very important. And then so we've got the different equipment that you have, and no VHS, right? No video, no. Okay.
No, the only thing we've done is use the Metro lab a little bit. So we have a local library council that has equipment that you can, I think it's like $15 an hour or something.
We had, that was from,
Molly
yes, we had Molly in for our boot camp. Remember, she talked after Jasmine from Smithsonian about it's Transfer Collective originally, right? Their setup, which is now part of Metro's. And it's very affordable. And then you did the home movie too, which I feel like is more outreach for that, but partnerships to do that.
Because we had some things that were on format and we just didn't know what it was at all. But like some of the stuff we transferred was there are these two folklorists who used to work for the Queens Council on the Arts. They used to have 2 full-time folklorist positions. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, yeah. Those were the days.
Yeah, like, what days were those? That's amazing. And now they've founded an organization called City Lore, which is a pretty famous place in New York City. But they used to work for Queens Council on the Arts, and they did a whole project on play. So they went to playgrounds and they asked kids, like, what are the rules of your games? And they, like, just interviewed these little kids about, like,
familiar. Yeah.
So we knew that we had some tapes that were related to that, and we just wanted to, like, find out what we had that maybe they thought they had lost, so we were digitizing those.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing, too, that I feel that we've sort of been throwing around ideas of, and that I've done once or twice in a pop-up, is where just bringing the VHS deck and a monitor for people, and then the VHS-C adapter, because a lot of people have the smaller VHS-C tapes, but they don't have the adapters anymore, and then they don't have their VCR or whatever anymore, just to give them time to look through things and then be like, oh, I know
it's worth doing.
Exactly, yeah, because most of the time they just have a shoebox full of tapes or whatever. So that's sort of like, I feel like I have a very portable VHS that I just can easily put in my car. That I feel like, we're hoping that everybody, they've put a call out for several months ago to their local communities about getting donations in, so a lot of them have gotten, like, consumer VCRs and consumer TVs, a SpongeBob SquarePants television that I'm very jealous of. Maybe someday. Or maybe like a Hello Kitty, that would be cool. So there's that, and then do you want to talk about? I have this up here for our for a reminder. Oh, I know what that. The Wikitos you were telling me about earlier, that organization that you are.
So I'm on the advisory board of this organization called Wikitos, and their mission is to record every human language. So spoken and also sign languages. They have volunteers all over the world who are doing video recordings of people speaking, and they have developed a kind of method that it seems to work pretty well for people who maybe don't speak the same rare language, but they have some language in common. And so, like, the example I was using is that we started working with them to record some of the smaller languages that are from the Himalayan diaspora that is living in Queens, kind of all clustered in a pretty tight geographic area, so that it's like a population that we can really, like, get into, and there are organizations that are support organizations and social organizations for these folks. So maybe their common language is Nepali, but then 2 people who would maybe both speak Nepali would have different languages that neither one of them would share, and so they could interview each other, and it would be like you'd ask the question in Nepali, you'd answer it in Nepali, and then also answer in your language that was your language that only you know. And so they're trying to do it that way so that people can conduct interviews but capture that language too.
Document that, and that's so I thought that was particularly relevant for Karuk in documenting your language. And then also, I know that Boyle, you said that you had a large deaf population in your community, so I feel like these could all be really helpful resources for you all looking into that kind of thing.
And I know that they have volunteers working in the U.S. I know I've heard about people in Texas working with I'm forgetting which first people they are working with. But anyway, I know that they're making a big effort to try to get some different tribal organizations to, like, give them some help with recording language specifically.
Yeah, get some resources.
So they could be a good resource.
Very cool. So yeah, and then there was a PDF. Here it is. I was going to open. I feel like it is open.
Oh, was this the workflow?
Yeah.
Okay. So
this, so we can. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I love workflows.
So this just shows you how materials move through the different steps of our workflow, from the time that where you have a scanning event with that far left donor attends community event, to the point where we put it up on the Digital Public Library of America. So it just, kind of outlines and the different, you can see that there's like the different colors for kind of the first stage, and then, the second stage, which is happening here with our staff, and then ways that we're sharing it on out with aggregated systems. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know how much you want to talk about the, like storage, and then also the app that you guys have as well that people are contributing things to. I don't know if you want me to pull.
Yeah, and I can show you also on my phone. So one of the things that was happening, as we were getting people to contribute materials is they were sending us these crazy emails that had gigantic attachments, because we would really encourage people to, like, create really large files. And then they were emailing.
Yeah.
So they were choking our inbox. So if you have to sign in, yeah, you can sign in and have a free account that's just based on your name and your email. But also, like, I can hold this up here. So this is
maybe this one.
Yeah. Maybe
wait, let me not share.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. So this is an app. Yeah, I think you're still showing this, right?
Yep. Stop sharing. Thank you.
So this is the Queen's Memory upload tool. And this was what we tried to, we are implementing now, because volunteers have a way to send us large files that otherwise they were emailing to us, or they were emailing us a link to their Dropbox or whatever. And so this just kind of, you can do it as a mobile app, and for Android or iOS. This is all open source, and it's all on GitHub. So if an organization wanted to put their own logo in there and have their own upload tool, they could do it.
So who did this for you?
This was something that we did with our IT team, and then also with some students from the local computer, the local like computer science program. So it has a thing where you put in your name and your email address, and you say that you agree to the terms, and then you say what kind of thing it is that you want to upload. And so you can upload a digital photograph, or a scanned photograph, an oral history interview, or what we call wild sound. And wild sound is like if you go to, like, the playground outside PS 123 at 3:30 when the kids get out of school, and you want to do like a recording of a public place, which is really fun. So we have different metadata that we gather for each one of these different 4 kinds of things. And so depending on what it is that people want to enter, then they have these information screens like this form to fill out. And then at the end of it, once they get done filling out these fields, then they can pick a photograph that's from their phone. And so they can select if they want it to be from their camera or, their photo gallery, and they can just pick the file and upload it.
And describe it. Right. Is there like there's minimum metadata?
Yeah. So in these fields that we were scrolling through, there are ones that are required, and then there are ones that aren't required.
Cool. And stepping through like last name of photographer, first name of photographer, required. Yeah.
And so it could just feed to like a Google spreadsheet or something. The way that we have it going is we have it going directly to our digital asset management system.
Okay.
So that way our catalogers, which is vital.
Yeah.
So our catalogers open up Vital, they see the things that are waiting in a queue to be reviewed, and they can change typos, and then they just set it live. So it's an effort to make it more seamless.
Yeah. So to me, I'm just like, this is so great. So they can get someone from a local computer science program or something, maybe, to help them make it their own. But yeah, it's just that idea of like, where does it go then? And there's no video, right? It's just, there's audio.
There could be video. It's any file.
Yeah.
And I would just say that the desktop version works a little better for large files because it won't time out. A lot of times if people have, they're using their data or something. So I usually encourage, and you can, again, like on the queensmemory.org site, all you have to do is put in just your name and email, and you can have a free account. And as soon as you're logged in, then you can go to the Participate tab and then click Upload, and you can open up the upload tool that's like the desktop version and see it.
And I feel like with the physical space of the memory lab that you guys are going to have, that could be a good interim for people who are like, where do I store this thing you know, and if it's, the other thing is though, what about things that don't meet your criteria, or what is your criteria, you know, like, do you reject things?
Yeah, we email people, and,
okay.
and usually we don't stop them because a lot of times things are not in the super high quality like image. I mean, usually it's a conversation though, like it starts a conversation. So we'll contact them and be like, you know, did you just take a photo of this photo and then like send us the photo of it? Like, maybe you could bring it in and we'll scan it for you. And so it just initiates that communication. And a lot of times people will just be like, this is the only thing I have. And it's like, well, it's a really cool picture of this neighborhood at this time that we don't have a lot of information about, so we'll take it. So it's not always the best, most amazing quality. But sometimes like, people are surprising. They have really, really great stuff.
And you just tell them anything about Queens.
And that helps too. It's a very broad, like we're fine with anything connected to Queens. So it can be a person who's just arrived or has been here for a long time or whatever. The only thing that we won't take is something that's clearly something they've like grabbed from somebody else's Instagram or something. Right. We try to make sure that people actually own the stuff that they're giving to us. I would say that the way to control for like really not having to take everything would be to use a third party. So like if you use HistoryPin, for example, and maybe you create you know, a special project page with them that's about your town, and you just have people contributing there, then it's not necessarily hitting your repository and you're not on the hook for maintaining it forever. That could be a way to.
Okay, cool. I feel like that's probably a good, also just to prove as a concept or something to then maybe say, oh, we should have, we should include this, you know. So, I feel like that's super cool. I love it. I love that.
But I would really encourage, I mean, I think that for anybody who is learning be a developer, like anybody who would be like an undergraduate computer science person, they could grab the code off of GitHub and you can reconfigure it for your organization. That would be awesome.
I want to learn how to do that. That's what to do. Rely on volunteers. Cool. So
we have to end pretty soon, right? So are there questions?
Actually, there's we normally go like an hour and a half. Actually, but that's the max. So sometimes I'm all about ending early if we're able to. So thank you.
I'm hanging out.
Thanks for chatting with me. And then if you guys have any questions, we're looking at the chat box, or you can just ask away. On your app, how do you present rights statements or rights transfer issues?
Okay, so we have a statement that's at the beginning, that's in the part of the sign-in screen, and what we always ask for is a Creative Commons license. So that's on both the paper version of our consent form, which is also on the Queen's Memory site. Maybe we should navigate around that site a little bit to show you guys where some of that stuff is. And then we use kind of the same thing. So you're in the right place. Okay, so if you go to About and then Technical Info, this will get you to all of the forms that are forms for participants. Oh, wait.
I'm not a big fan of the track.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that's all right. And so this is, we've translated we have a lot of languages that we need, but I'll just show you the English one so that you can see some of the terms. And we try to use a consent form that tells participants what they're getting, what they should be getting from us or from the person who's conducting their interview. We like to have that be really super clear so that a volunteer interviewer knows exactly what they're supposed to provide somebody with. Oh, I need to take a picture of them and I need to give them that picture, for example. And then we have a link here to the Creative Commons license so that people can see the full information. And then we just tell them that they co-own the copyright of their interview with the person they interviewed. And so we have both the interviewee and the interviewer sign on the second page.
So they own the copyright but you
give us a license.
Gotcha. A free use license.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And it's for all downstream users too. So anybody wanting to use the interview can, as long as they provide attribution.
Gotcha. Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, that resource page key. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be helpful. And then there are links on the Queen Summary page too that are for let's see some of those other things like that. Also in this list, I think that guide that's the digital preservation brochure. So this is the one we were looking at earlier that has the
great. The general and the nice. Yeah. That's great.
And with all of this stuff, like if you guys see information, I mean, feel free to borrow. I think
give a little shout out to you guys, and
this is all information that should be shared.
Yes, that's great. That's awesome. Cute. Little. I love the icons.
Little
yeah.
Flatbed
scanner.
A little flatbed scanner.
Adorable. The trash can's adorable. Everything's adorable. Okay, cool. Very cool. Let's see. Any other questions?
Chat. Yeah, and if you want to go back real quick, if there are things, I'll show you where the GitHub link is as well.
Yes. Aha. Thank you. You are doing these things, Maria. Cool.
Okay, so from
home?
go to the home page.
Yeah.
And then there's
right here? Yeah. Okay.
So that's how you can get to.
Awesome. And then what needs to go? Boopy? Yes. GitHub.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. Fork it.
Yes. We might have to do a GitHub discussion someday. But basically, it's a great place where people can share open source code in order to make it their own. So that's awesome. Then that's also what I'm learning, how to build our MemLab Network webpage on the GitHub pages, so that way people can just, take it and make it their own as well. So it's just a great transparent way to, provide information and hope that people will remix and reuse and stuff like that.
Specifically what's on here is the Android and the iOS app, the mobile app.
Yeah. Cool. Which is way more coding than I know at all.
Yeah, the students in our development team used a tool called Appcelerator. That was what they used to build it.
Appcelerator. Is that open source?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah.
But I know that it's the way that they developed the code.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just one more thing to look up.
I know.
Yeah.
That is not the part I do.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Brilliant people, though. So I just want to make sure we have everyone, if they have a chance to ask any questions. With the oral histories you create, how much editing do you encourage people to do, if any? That's a great question.
We keep the full unedited interview as the archival record, and then we edit clips that we put online. So the only things that go up on the public website are edited clips.
Okay.
And then we share also the time code outline. We don't create full transcripts, because what we found with volunteers is that it was just too much. So it usually takes 5 hours to create transcript for every hour of recording.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and that 5-to-1 ratio is killer when you're dealing with people who are not being paid.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, but a time code outline, especially if you know the the people, places, and things that are discussed in the interview, a la like you've interviewed your neighbor or your family member, it can be very fast. Like you can create a time code outline in like 2 hours for every hour of interview.
Okay, yeah.
And so that has been like very much lowering the barrier to entry, and it's been like getting it done.
Yeah.
And we also, I take kind of an activist role with oral history in that I want to get people to the audio, and I don't want them to just be reading a transcript and feeling like they've experienced the interview and like they don't need to listen to it.
Yeah.
Because especially with people who we're interviewing, who maybe like English is not even their first language, there's like a lot of nuance.
Yep.
There's a lot of layers of meaning that are happening that you're not going to get unless you're listening to the person talk and hearing how the two people are communicating who are interviewing each other.
Or or and then that just adds video. I feel like adds even another layer of that.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you're signing or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we try to just use the time code outlines because it just gets the researcher to the subject. They're like, oh, this is the part that I'm interested in content-wise, and then they'll just go to that part.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's awesome. I feel like more oral history should do that. And then actually, that kind of leads me to a question I don't think I asked, is how do you train your volunteers to do you give them some tips that you've written out, or do you go through a whole, like, here, watch this webinar on oral histories?
Well, we have the interviewer trainings that we do every other month. And then a lot of times when we have a whole bunch of new interviewers, it's because they're all in a class.
Right.
And so I'll make a classroom visit and teach people. And we just teach them some like basics about how to do good interviewing questions. We really try to emphasize having talks with the person they're going to interview beforehand to do all that pre-interview work. And then for training people to do the back office work, we'll bring folks in who are volunteers. And like you met August just before we started talking. So he is like an EMT who's trained to be a doctor, and he's just doing this for like fun.
Wow.
Yeah, so he comes in, he does time code outlines for interviews that he did not record. So he's just listening to an interview and creating the time code outline. So usually we'll show people examples, and then we will just have them like listen to an interview and see a good time code outline and see like the level of detail that people are capturing, because that can be a difficult thing to figure out when you're first doing them, is like how close to a full transcript should it really be. And so kind of getting a sense of like how detailed, and then we have them do them and we just review them, and then after a while people get it.
Yeah, get the hang of it. Okay, cool. Do you have a favorite resource to share, or for creating oral histories, like, or training anyone who's going to be doing recording?
Well, for community oral histories, I love the Nancy McKay books. So there's a series, which I think I have on the shelf, which I can show you guys. They're, I think, a 5-part series that is called Community Oral History Toolkit. These are fantastic.
Community Oral History Toolkit. This is 2 of 5.
Yep, and here's another one. I've loaned out the other one.
Gotcha. So 2 is planning a community oral history project, and then 3 is managing a community oral history project.
But the thing that is so nice about these books is, read it fast. The thing that's really good about these books, is that they give you some really good planning tools that help you figure out some scope around your project and help you to think out some of the stuff that otherwise you'll get to the end of doing interviews and be like, wait, why didn't we ask people for this? Like, oh, I heard all these and we never took anybody picture. I mean, you can forget things that are extremely obvious in retrospect that are not at all obvious when you're doing it, because oral history is so complicated. They're complicated records. It's an event. You're like putting on an event, but then you're trying to document the event that documents the history. No, I like that it's got like best practices that they start out with, and then I'm sure that they go deeper into. Seems like, these are really good. And Nancy has written a bunch of, Nancy McKay has written other books that are good for public libraries doing oral history. And so there are other ones that are good, like curating oral history collections. So like if you walk into an existing collection and you have to try to catalog it and make it accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would advise finding other stuff by her.
Cool. Will do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also Oral History in the Digital Age is a good online free resource. And they even have resources there about equipment too.
Okay, cool. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So anyone else have any other questions that maybe popped up? Because that always happens with me.
So outline the process of creating a timecode outline. Yes, we talked about this a little bit. And you can see a sample timecode outline on the Queen's Memory page. So it's on that same about and technical. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a section that is about timecode outlines. So
about technical info.
So we scroll down. Going. Timecode outlines. Okay, so there's a symbol there.
Okay.
And so you'll see that at the top there's kind of set of information that's just like the who, what, where, why, and when of the interview. So the names of the people who conducted the interview and also the people who did the processing. So we try to record like who wrote the timecode outline. And then the next chunk is a summary that the person who's creating the timecode outline usually writes after they've written the timecode outline that just tells you like, here's this person and this is the stuff they talked about. And these are the major things that they discuss, and we were basically covering these years, you know, so it gives the researcher a general summary of like what it is that this interview is about. And then after that, it breaks down into the time code stamps. So like at a minute, you know, in a minute and 30 seconds, they're talking about moving to Ridgewood, and then, you know, at 3 minutes and 50 seconds talking about buying a house in Ridgewood. So you'll see that these are really chock full of access points. We try to encourage the people who are creating these timecode outlines to put in the proper names of things. So even if somebody refers to it as like, well, I fought in the war, like you wouldn't write that. You would like figure out what war they were talking about and then write that in there specifically. World War II,
so they could like keyword search. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes, that is a great resource.
Yeah. And then the way that we, in case anybody's really into like cataloging stuff, the really nerdy part, we're using VRA Core to capture metadata about our oral histories. And the reason we use that type of catalog record is because their VRA Core records were really introduced by the Visual Resources Association, which are mostly people who are working with museum collections where they'll maybe have like, they'll have, you know, like a chair that is some like super important like decorative arts chair. They will also have a photograph of the chair that was the photograph that was used in the catalog. And then they will also have conservator notes and whatever. So it's a way to capture the idea of the chair, and within that, like the chair itself and also the picture of the chair. And so you can have these kind of related objects. So for us, a person who is interviewed, each interview has its own collection level record. And so it will be like the Jane Doe interview, and within that is the time code outline, a picture of Jane Doe, the photographs that she pulled from her family photo album that we digitized and added to the collection, and then also the edited clips and the full interview. And so all of those assets are all part of that collection level record. Wow. And we're able to keep those things together.
Yeah.
So that's
VRA Core. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Very cool.
Probably similar to PB Core. I'm guessing.
Yeah. PB Core, Dublin Core. Right. Yeah.
But where you have like those
things where it's instantiations like, and exactly. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Great questions, guys. Anything else? We have a few more. Do you interview volunteers?
We should do that. We do that sometimes. Not everybody. Yeah. I would love to do that even more.
Yeah. How much is your special collections digitization tied into the Queen's Memory project?
A lot. So that is the primary thing that we're digitizing in this division. And anytime we do a public event in a neighborhood, we will create reproductions of historic images from that neighborhood and bring those so it's a show and tell. So it's very much tied in. It's all the same staff who are doing public events, scanning days, and also here digitizing our local history collections.
Gotcha.
And that stuff is like, I mean, that's job security. There's like way more than we'll ever get through.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how big are your collections?
Yeah,
probably hard to.
It's like tens of thousands of items. I don't know exactly. I know that they have it written up on in the archives literature how much stuff it is.
Right.
But yeah, plenty to keep us busy.
I'm sure.
Basically.
And then you said that there were 3, 4 people in digitization?
They had 2 sits there, so we're a division of 32 people.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so what we've tried to do, like when I started here in the division, we had combined a 3-person digitization team with, you know, like the 29-person cataloging team. And the library continues to buy fewer physical books, but we have more of these kinds of things. And Queen's Memory grows as big as you can. Yeah. I mean, it will grow as big as we can support it. Yeah. So it was a way of having people who are very expert and well-trained and technical to have more work to do. And so we have been doing a lot of cross-training and getting people familiar with both the cataloging side and also the digital archive side. Okay, great. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So it's been a good way to take people who are like really smart and skilled and detail-oriented, like give them a whole other set of skills that are like job security. Yes, and needed. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, and it gives us something really public to do so that the rest of the institution knows what the heck we're doing here. Yeah. Because we don't want to be back office employees that everybody's like, I think they're just having coffee breaks. Well, right. It's a library where it's very much about public service. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like, no, we do stuff. Yeah. So how many staff members do you take to an event? Is there a normal minimum or? Yeah, usually we like to have like 3 people working the scanning station because one person will just be scanning. The flatbed scanner. And we want to leave that person alone so that they're not screwing up the file names and so that they're just like not being interrupted and they can focus and get like nice images that are cropped well. And then we have the other 2 people kind of like running interference with the public and the people who are showing up with their stuff. And we like to, with every donor, have a volunteer or a staff person who will like sit with them and fill out the sheet of information that's like, who's in this photo, when was it taken, what events are happening in this photo. And so we have a written sheet of paper for everything that we scan from them. So then at the end of a scanning event, we'll come home with a bundle that is like, every donor has a paper-clipped pack of papers, and on the top is their signed consent form, and then underneath that is every sheet of paper for every file, which seems a little overboard, but it's organization-wise, that sounds great. It's way more. Is there a unique identifier on it? Like, I'm like, how do you barcode? What do you? Yeah. So basically, like, if I was writing that out with you, then I would hand it off to the person running the scanner, and they would be like, okay, so this is filed like 001. And so we have a little space in the upper right corner where you can, like, I appreciate that, definitely. Yeah. And you will too, should you do, when you do any kind of like pop-up or event where you have multiple people coming through. Yes. And it's funny because on Saturday, for the first time, we had I think his name is Rick Shepard. He's the originator of the Drifters, Under the Boardwalk guy. So he's like in his 80s, looks like he's 50 maybe, and he was like singing to the crowd and whatever, and he was like, well, here's my website that has all the pictures from everything, and he's like, I give you my permission to use it. And so we got him to sign a consent form and write down the URL, and now we're going to do web archiving on it. Ask. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So that's something you guys do too. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Very cool. So we're working with Internet Archive and using Archivist. And so we have 3 internal collections that we're maintaining of our web archiving. We got some internal stakeholders within Queen's Library in different departments so that it would be something that would be institutionally seen as important to them. So like our government affairs folks, and we touch base with them every year, and we say, okay, here were the things that we did web archiving for you last year, and it'll be like the social media accounts of elected officials. Then our communications department, we got their buy-in, and they were interested in capturing any website that we create as a library, but then they also wanted to get press. So anytime the library is mentioned in a news article, or if we're on New York One, which is the local news station, then we'll quick capture that before the video goes away. Because a lot of times the video of news stories will only be on a site for a short amount of time. And then our third stakeholder is the archives. And so they have a lot of historical societies and other groups that are like, you know, historical, I don't know, like just groups of people who are interested in different topics and neighborhoods around Queens, who used to print a newsletter and mail a copy to the archives, and now they just have everything on a website. And so we're capturing that now to try to capture some of those things.
Oh, okay, awesome.
And now like musicians' websites too, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Local musicians that have really contributed. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was the first though. We've never done a scanning day where they're like, I don't have anything in print. It's all on my website.
Right.
I love it.
I know. That's awesome.
He's like, I don't even know where those things are.
Right. Okay. Here's my Twitter. That's great. Cool. Awesome. Well, any other questions? Keep looking at the chat. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. Really, really appreciate it. It was so great and so inspiring. I want to do all the things.